He laughed in court, laughed at the sight of a black teenage girl in a plain navy blazer and worn-out flats, sitting alone at the defense table. Laughed like he already knew the ending, like it was just another joke. But what Officer Rick Donnelly didn't know was that he was staring at one of the sharpest legal minds that courtroom would ever witness, because sometimes justice doesn't wear a suit. It wears sneakers, carries a binder, and knows the law better than the man who put her in handcuffs. The courtroom wasn't silent, not really. An old fan whirred in the corner. Plastic chairs squeaked under shifting weight. A clerk's pen scratched softly against a notepad, but when Ariel Manning walked through the doors, the air changed. She didn't walk in to impress anyone. Her hair was pulled back in a modest bun. Her glasses rested low on her nose. She looked calm, controlled. Like someone who had already read the last chapter of a book, the rest of the room was still trying to understand. She sat slowly at the defense table. No lawyer beside her, no legal team. Just a 17-year-old girl accused of obstructing justice, facing the state of Arizona. And that's when Officer Donnelly chuckled. It wasn't loud, but just enough to draw a side-eye from the bailiff. He leaned back in his chair beside. The prosecutor, arms crossed, smirk tugging at his lip. "This'll be quick," he muttered. At the bench, Judge Raymond Keyes adjusted his glasses and glanced at the docket. "Miss Manning, you're representing yourself today?" "Yes, Your Honor," she replied, her voice clear, steady. He paused, intrigued. "You've waived your right to counsel. You do understand this isn't traffic court? You will be held to the same standards as a licensed attorney." "I understand, Your Honor." Donnelly scoffed, a soft puff of disbelief. To him, it was a circus act, a girl from the East Side trying to play smart. What he didn't know, not yet, was that Ariel had spent the last 4 weeks preparing like her future depended on it. Because it did. While other kids were going to parties or scrolling TikTok, Ariel had been studying, watching hours of trial footage, calling legal aid hotlines under a fake name, reading the Arizona Penal Code like scripture, and most importantly, replaying the video from her cracked phone again and again, the moment Donnelly slammed her classmate into a fence and arrested her for daring to speak up. She hadn't been trying to go viral that day. She was trying to protect someone, and now she was here, prepared, unafraid. She glanced at the gallery. Her mother sat in the back row, arms tight across her chest. No smile, no movement, just silent, unshakable support. Ariel gave her the smallest nod, not for comfort, for confirmation. She was ready. The bailiff called the case. The state of Arizona versus Ariel Elise Manning, case number 22, Sir 2135B. Ariel stood. "Ready, Your Honor?" Donnelly barely looked up. But arrogance, it breaks fast under the weight of truth. And Ariel Manning was about to show the whole courtroom just how heavy that truth could be. The sun outside was blazing, that dry Arizona heat that made metal fences feel like stovetops. But inside the courtroom, the tension was colder, sharper, like something brittle about to snap. Ariel adjusted her glasses and stepped forward. She wasn't trembling. She didn't stutter. Her hands didn't fumble the stack of documents she held, neatly. Tabbed, color-coded, worn from handling, Donnelly leaned back in his chair. He didn't even bother to hide his smirk. To him, this was a performance. To her, it was survival. Judge Keyes nodded. "Miss Manning, you may begin." Ariel didn't look at her notes. "Your Honor," she said, "I know I'm not a lawyer. I won't pretend I am, but I do know what I saw, and more importantly, I know what I lived." There was a pause in the room. "I'll let the facts speak for me." And just like that, she sat back down. The judge blinked, slightly impressed. The prosecution began with their opening, painted Ariel as loud, disruptive, a teenager who escalated a tense situation. Donnelly sat behind the prosecutor with arms folded like a man watching a rerun, like this would go exactly the way it always had. But then the incident was brought up. September 12th. Just outside Roosevelt High, Ariel had been waiting for her ride near the corner of South 13th Avenue and West Adams. She heard shouting. At first, she thought it was just students arguing, until she saw D'Angelo Ruiz, a classmate, being shoved, face first, into a chain-link fence by Officer Donnelly. He hadn't asked questions. He hadn't tried to understand. He had walked up and grabbed D'Angelo like he was furniture, like force was step one. Ariel had done the only thing she could. She pulled out her phone. "You can't do that," she had said in the video. "You didn't even ask what happened." Donnelly's reply was on camera. "Back up. You want to interfere. You want to be part of this." And then, the moment that started everything. He let go of D'Angelo and turned on her, grabbed her, cuffed her, threw her against the car like she was the one who'd broken the law. "Obstruction," he barked, loud enough for his body cam to hear it. But Ariel's phone was recording too, a cracked screen, low resolution. But audio crystal clear. It wasn't the best footage, but it was enough. Enough to show her standing still. Enough to hear her voice, not angry, not threatening, just present, asking, witnessing. Enough to question everything Donnelly had written in that police report. She had watched that video over 30 times. She had studied it frame by frame. She had memorized where her hands were, the distance she stood, the exact second her voice rose. And now it was evidence. But that moment hadn't felt powerful back then. It had felt terrifying. The holding cell was cold. Her phone had been taken. Her mother hadn't even arrived when they fingerprinted her. The public defenders were overworked and underpaid. No one wanted the case, except Ariel. So she took it. She remembered what her aunt once told her. "If you want to be heard, speak their language." That night, Ariel sat at her kitchen table with a borrowed laptop, a dim lamp and a legal pad. She typed, "Opening statement, draft 1." She didn't know it yet, but that line would echo through a courtroom packed with people who underestimated her. She wasn't just defending herself. She was preparing to dismantle everything they thought they knew about girls like her. The courtroom felt warmer now, not from the sun, but from the attention shifting. People weren't just watching anymore, they were listening. Even Judge Keyes, who'd seen 1,000 cases walk through that courtroom, sat forward slightly in his chair. Something was different. The prosecution called their first witness, Officer Rick Donnelly. He moved like a man used to being obeyed. Polished shoes, pressed uniform, hands folded behind his back. "Officer Donnelly," the prosecutor began, "can you describe what happened on the afternoon of September 12th? Donnelly cleared his throat. "I received a report of a disturbance outside Roosevelt. Hi. When I arrived, the student in question, D'Angelo Ruiz, was yelling at school security. I restrained him for safety. Then Miss Manning began shouting and interfering with my ability to manage the scene." His voice was steady, too steady. Ariel took notes silently, pen gliding across yellow-lined paper, no emotion on her face, just observation. When the prosecution was done, Judge Keyes looked toward her. "Miss Manning, your witness." She stood, walked slowly toward the stand, not aggressive, not meek, measured. "Officer Donnelly," she began, "how long have you served with the Phoenix Police Department?" 17 years. In those 17 years, how often have you arrested a student for obstruction without a physical threat involved? Donnelly paused. "It depends on the situation." "Would you say often?" "Occasionally." She nodded. "Would you describe me as a physical threat that day?" He smirked. "You were yelling. You made it difficult to control the situation." Ariel held up a printed screenshot. "Is this from the video taken at the time of the arrest?" He squinted. "Looks like it. In this frame, I am... How far from you?" Donnelly hesitated. 12 feet, maybe." Ariel held up a second frame. "And in this one, 5 seconds later." He leaned forward. "About the same. So I didn't move closer?" "No." "And did I touch anyone?" "No." Did I threaten you? You were escalating things. That's not what I asked, sir. I asked if I threatened you. Donnelly's jaw tightened. No. Ariel stepped back, calm. Her voice never rose. Do you recall telling me to back up? Yes. Did I? Yes. Did you ask me any questions before placing me in handcuffs? I gave verbal commands. But did you ask me anything about what happened, about D'Angelo? Donnelly didn't answer right away. No. There was a pause in the room. A shift. Ariel nodded and turned to the judge. No further questions? For now. She returned to her seat. For the first time since the trial began, Donnelly didn't look so relaxed. He shifted in his seat, wiped his palms against his pants. The truth, that slow, quiet weight, had begun pressing down. The next witness, a school security guard, gave a vague account. Said he remembered the incident but couldn't recall details. Another student said they weren't really paying attention. And then it was Ariel's turn. She stood again, this time holding a USB stick. Your Honor, she said, I'd like to enter a video file into evidence, recorded by me on the day of the arrest. Judge Keyes looked at the prosecutor, who nodded reluctantly. Accepted. Please proceed. The courtroom dimmed as the video played. It wasn't cinematic. There was no music, no angle changes, just reality. You could hear Donnelly shouting, "See him grab D'Angelo." Hear Ariel's voice, calm, but firm. You can't do that. The courtroom sat still. Even Donnelly looked smaller. When the video ended, there was no applause, no gasps, just silence. Heavy silence. Judge Keyes leaned forward. Officer Donnelly, would you like to respond? And just like that, for the first time, he didn't have a script to follow. Officer Donnelly cleared his throat. The video doesn't capture the whole interaction, Your Honor, he said. You can't see the angle I was at. She was provoking an already volatile situation. Ariel stood immediately. Objection, Your Honor. That's a subjective opinion. Not a factual correction. Judge Keyes didn't hesitate. Sustained. Officer, stick to the facts. Donnelly looked rattled, not by the judge's tone, but by the way Ariel stood, calm, composed, not intimidated in the slightest. She stepped forward again. Officer Donnelly, in your original police report, you wrote, and I quote, the subject approached aggressively, yelling, and failed to comply with verbal warnings. Is that correct? He nodded stiffly. Yes. Ariel held up 2 screenshots, side by side. These are from the video. The first frame, time-stamped 14:05:23. The second, 14:05:28, 5 seconds apart. She turned them toward the judge and the jury box. In both frames, I am standing in the same position. No forward movement, no gestures. My hands are visible. My voice, as heard in the video, remains at a controlled volume. She paused, then looked directly at Donnelly. Would you like to challenge the timestamp integrity? I'm not a video expert, he muttered. That's fine, she said, flipping open another folder. I had the footage reviewed by a digital analyst from Northern Arizona University. The prosecutor stood. Objection, Your Honor. This witness wasn't disclosed. Judge Keyes raised an eyebrow. Miss Manning, did you submit this witness name and report to the court in advance? Ariel nodded. Yes, sir. 2 days ago. It's in the file marked Exhibit C. He scanned the folder briefly. She did, he said. Overruled. Continue. A low hum of surprise ran through the courtroom. Even the reporter from the Arizona Daily Sun in the back row began scribbling furiously. Ariel handed a printed report to the clerk. The analyst confirmed that the video was untampered. No edits, no splices, no alterations. Frame-by-frame breakdown confirms my location remains static for the duration of the incident. She looked back at Donnelly. Officer, do you maintain your claim that I approached you aggressively? Donnelly blinked. I perceived you as escalating. Ariel tilted her head. So your perception contradicts time-stamped third-party verified footage? It's not just about footage. It's about situational awareness. Ariel stepped closer, never raising her voice. So situational awareness allows you to arrest someone without asking them a single question? Silence. Without verifying facts? Silence again. Without assessing whether your actions constitute excessive force under state guidelines? Donnelly looked toward the prosecutor, but she said nothing. Ariel turned to the judge. I'd like to submit Exhibit D, a breakdown of use of force protocols by Phoenix PD and how they were violated in this case. The judge held out his hand. Submit it, and just like that, the dynamic in the courtroom had changed. Ariel wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was deconstructing the officer who arrested her. She was leading the room. Donnelly, the man with 17 years on the force, sat in silence, reduced to half answers and avoidant glances. The jury watched him differently now, not as a hero, but as a man being exposed by a girl with no law degree, no expensive suit, no team, just her binder, her mind, her preparation, and her refusal to be silenced. Your Honor, Ariel said, standing once more, I'd like to call my first witness, Mr. Kirkwood. A familiar figure rose from the gallery. Mr. Kirkwood, her history teacher, walked with quiet confidence to the stand. He wore a brown tweed blazer and a tie slightly crooked at the neck. The courtroom stilled as he was sworn in. Ariel approached. Mr. Kirkwood, how long have you known me? Since freshman year, he replied. I've taught Ariel in U.S. history, civics, and AP government. And in those years, have I ever been a disciplinary problem? He smiled. Ariel? No. If anything, she's the one other students go to when they don't understand the assignment. The judge looked up briefly. That was the kind of statement that stuck. Would you describe me as impulsive? Kirkwood shook his head. She's one of the most deliberate students I've ever taught. Every question she asks is calculated. She doesn't just speak, she thinks first. Ariel nodded and thanked him. No further questions. The prosecutor cross-examined briefly, trying to suggest bias. But Kirkwood stayed steady. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't overplay it. He just told the truth. Next, Ariel called D'Angelo Ruiz. The young man approached the witness stand nervously. His mother watched from the front row, hands clasped in prayer. He took the oath with a shaky voice. D'Angelo, Ariel said softly, can you tell us what happened that day outside school? D'Angelo swallowed. I was arguing with a security guard. Someone broke into my locker, and I was being blamed. And then? Officer Donnelly showed up. He didn't ask questions. He just grabbed me, pushed me into the fence. Did I touch you? No. Did I try to interfere physically? No. What did I do? You asked him what he was doing. Then you pulled out your phone. Ariel nodded. And what happened next? He came at you, grabbed you, cuffed you, said you were interfering. D'Angelo looked down. You didn't do anything wrong. The prosecutor tried to press him on agitation, but D'Angelo didn't bend. She was calm, he repeated. She didn't yell. She didn't move. She just recorded. Ariel stood. Your Honor, I'd now like to enter a video into evidence. Recorded on my phone during the incident. Time and date stamped. Authenticated by a third-party digital analyst. The judge nodded. Proceed. A screen was wheeled out. Lights dimmed. The video began. No music, no drama, just reality. A group of students, Officer Donnelly shouting, D'Angelo being shoved, Ariel's voice. You can't do that. Donnelly's reply, back up. You want to interfere? And then metal clinking, her phone dropping, her voice again. Steady. You didn't even ask. Cut cuffs. The video ends. No one moved. Even the bailiff shifted awkwardly in place. Judge Keyes leaned back. Hands folded, eyes unreadable. Donnelly, for the first time, looked nervous. The judge turned to him. Officer, would you like to explain what we just saw? Donnelly licked his lips. The video doesn't capture the whole situation, Your Honor. It captures enough, Judge Keyes replied. Ariel sat back down quietly. No gloating, no fist pump, just the calm of someone who knows they've done their homework. And for the first time in that courtroom, everyone else knew it too. The courtroom hadn't returned to normal, even after the video ended, even after the lights came back on. Something had shifted. People sat straighter, leaned in, waited. They weren't just watching a case anymore. They were witnessing a reckoning. Ariel stood again. "Your Honor," she said, her voice crisp, "I'd like to submit an additional piece of evidence. Exhibit E." She walked to the clerk and handed over a file. Not large, but dense. "These are records retrieved through a Freedom of Information request. Public complaints filed against Officer Donnelly over the last 5 years." The judge's eyebrows raised slightly. Ariel continued. "One from a parent at Dunbar Elementary who claimed Officer Donnelly grabbed her son by the collar during a playground dispute. One from a gas station clerk in South Phoenix who said Donnelly drew his weapon during a disagreement over parking. One from a driver he detained last November who alleged verbal abuse and unnecessary escalation." The prosecutor jumped to her feet. "Objection, Your Honor. These are unverified accusations. They have no bearing on this case." Ariel didn't miss a beat. "I'm not arguing guilt, Your Honor. I'm asking the court to recognize a pattern." She turned toward the room, not grandstanding, just steady. A pattern of overreaction, a pattern of escalation, a pattern of treating questions like threats. She paused. "I'm not his first stop. I'm just the first one who brought a binder." A ripple moved through the courtroom, quiet but unmistakable. The judge glanced down at the file. He didn't dismiss it. Ariel looked back at Donnelly. "Officer, do you recall the complaint filed last November?" His jaw locked. "I don't. Recall the details. You don't recall a driver stating you screamed at him for asking why he was being pulled over?" "I conduct myself professionally. And yet, 3 separate complaints, 3 instances of alleged excessive force or aggression. And now this." She gestured to the screen, where the final frame of the video still hung frozen. A teenager cuffed. A face turned in disbelief. A phone knocked to the ground. "This isn't just about what happened to me," Ariel said. "It's about a pattern of behavior." The prosecutor tried again. "Your Honor, she's poisoning the well." "Judge." He's raised a hand. "Sit down, counselor." He turned to Donnelly. "Officer, I'd like a direct response to these claims, under oath." Donnelly adjusted his tie. Swallowed. "I've served this department with distinction." "That's not what I asked," the judge cut in. "Did you, or did you not, have 3 complaints filed against you in the last 5 years?" Donnelly hesitated. "Yes, but none were sustained." "And did you, or did you not, place Miss Manning under arrest without asking a single question?" Donnelly didn't speak. The silence was deafening. Ariel returned to her seat. She didn't smile. She didn't look victorious. She looked relieved. Not because it was over, but because the truth had finally pierced the badge, and for the first time the courtroom wasn't doubting her. They were doubting him. Judge Keyes leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled, his eyes unreadable. Then he looked over the courtroom and said, "We'll recess for 15 minutes. I need to review the exhibits." No one moved. The bailiff's voice broke the silence. "All rise." As the judge disappeared into his chambers, the tension in the room finally exhaled. Ariel sat down, breathing shallowly. Her binder now lay closed in front of her, a battle-worn shield. Donnelly remained seated at the witness stand, arms crossed, jaw clenched. The prosecutor whispered something to him, but he didn't respond. Across the aisle, D'Angelo's mother gave Ariel's mom a small, silent nod, respect, the kind that can't be bought, only earned. When the judge returned, the courtroom rose again. He didn't take his time. He didn't shuffle papers or adjust his glasses. He looked directly at Ariel. "I've reviewed the testimony, the video footage, and the exhibits submitted by the defense," he said. "And I have several concerns." The prosecutor stiffened. Donnelly blinked. "Miss Manning." the judge continued. Your presentation of facts, your ability to structure legal argument, and your use of supporting material was exceptional. Ariel didn't react. Not visibly, but more importantly, he said, voice firm, you've demonstrated that the arresting officer did not follow protocol, that he failed to assess the situation properly, that he used force where none was warranted. He looked at Donnelly now, and that this is not an isolated incident. A pause. As such, I am dismissing the charge of obstruction of justice. There was a collective inhale across the courtroom, like everyone had been waiting to breathe for an hour. Ariel stared forward, not smiling, not moving, just still. The judge wasn't finished. I will also be submitting a formal recommendation for internal review of Officer Donnelly's conduct, he said. My office will refer the complaints presented here today to the Phoenix Police Department's Internal Affairs Division. That did it. Donnelly's eyes widened. His badge had taken hits before, scratches, dents. But this was the crack he couldn't tape over. Ariel turned, finally, to look at her mother. Patrice had tears in her eyes, not dramatic ones, just the kind that had waited days to fall. The judge banged the gavel. Court is adjourned. There was no cheering, no whoops, no loud celebration, just the sound of people standing. Chairs moving, and a quiet that felt more powerful than any roar. Ariel gathered her binder, stood slowly. She didn't look back at Donnelly. She didn't need to. Outside the courtroom, the sun struck her face. Her mother was waiting on the steps. No words, just an embrace. The kind that meant, we made it. A few reporters lingered nearby, pens in hand. Ariel looked at them, not coldly, not warmly, and shook her head. Not today. Not yet. Inside, the walls still held the echo of her voice. Not loud, not angry, but clear, and in the place where people like her had often been silenced. She had spoken, and the system had finally listened. The court record listed it as a dismissal, just another case closed in a docket of thousands. But inside Roosevelt High, and across the east side of Phoenix, people didn't talk about it like that. They said, did you hear about the girl who stood up in court with no lawyer? She beat a cop with facts. She made the courtroom listen. The story didn't go viral overnight. There was no flashy headline, no trending hashtag, but the ripples were real. The Arizona Daily Sun ran a short feature. Teen defends herself in court, wins dismissal against veteran officer. Other local papers picked it up. Podcasts mentioned her name in passing. A few lawyers, real ones, reached out with offers, mentorships, internships, pre-law summer programs. Ariel didn't chase any of it. What mattered to her wasn't attention. It was record. That video, the one they said wouldn't matter, was now part of an official misconduct review. Officer Donnelly was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. His record, once sealed tight, now under a microscope. Some people still defended him. He was just doing his job. She should have stayed quiet. Why record everything? But for every voice like that, there were two more saying, she knew her rights, she stood her ground, she changed the tone of the room. At Roosevelt High, the shift was subtle but undeniable. Students started raising their hands more deliberately in class, not just to answer, but to challenge. Some teachers leaned in, others stayed silent. Mr. Kirkwood printed her name on the chalkboard one morning and wrote next to it, "Don't try to sound smart, try to sound certain." That sticky note Ariel had written was now school wisdom. One afternoon, he called her into his classroom. "I pulled some strings," he said, handing her a folder. Arizona State was hosting a summer law immersion program, mock court sessions, pre-law mentorships, college credit. They take 20 students. "I already emailed your name." Ariel didn't smile, didn't cry, she just nodded. "What made you say yes?" he asked. "I mean, really, to the whole fight?" She looked out the window for a second. then back at him. It wasn't just about me, she said. It was about making sure the next kid like me doesn't have to choose between being quiet or being cuffed. Mr. Kirkwood leaned back, eyes soft. You've got more than a binder now. That night, she sat at the kitchen table again, but this time no legal pads, no highlighters, no transcripts, just a blank sheet of paper. At the top she wrote, "They thought I came to defend myself, but I came to expose the truth." She didn't know what her future would hold. College, law school, activism, maybe all of it, maybe none. But this time, for the first time, she got to choose. And the message she left behind wasn't just about beating a bad charge. It was about what happens when a teenager with no power, no privilege, no voice, prepares in silence, speaks with clarity, and refuses to shrink. Justice didn't come from the top down that day. It came from the girl no one saw coming, holding nothing but a binder, a cracked phone, and the courage to say, "That's not okay."